What would you do if a company with 1.2 billion with a B in sales called and asked, "What do you got for us?" Stick around, we're going to flip the script today. You're listening to Idea Charger Radio. Man, as I'm sitting here, I'm still super duper mega awesome, incredibly excited about what happened this week. Hey, you know what, Success Chargers, welcome back. We're here for episode 30, and today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to flip the script. That's right. What I've got for you today is something that came out of a connection of mine. A good friend of mine who happens to be the vice president of sales for a company here in Houston called DXP. They're known for being an industrial distribution company. That's the simplest way I can explain what they do. But they serve a lot of companies and industries, and it's a company that has well over a century's experience in this field. They started as a company that distributed pumps, right? Just pumps, like industrial pumps. And not shoes, ladies. I'm talking about the kind that like move liquid and stuff through pipes and stuff, right? See, I told you, that's all the engineering I got right there. That's it. That's all I got. But you know what? They do it, and they do it well, because, you know, a lot of companies, if you looked up and your company suddenly had $1.2 billion in sales, I imagine you'd be pretty excited about it. And I would, man, I'd be ecstatic. I mean, I would just be, wow, you know, and you know, the thing to remember, though, is that 1.2 billion, everything's relative, right? It's relative as we think about it. And here's what I really love about what's going on at DXP. DXP is digging deep right now. You see, their industry's been hit by the downturn in the oil and gas companies. You know, we're based in Houston, or they're based in Houston, and they've got a lot of clients that play in that oil and gas space. As you can imagine, they're just not needing as much of those supplies as they did the year before. In fact, their sales were even off a little bit from the previous year, which was even better. But here's the exciting part. Being led by a leader like Curt Tueffert, my friend over there, who's the VP of sales, Curt is making sure that we're taking advantage right now of this downturn and doing what every great company does, and that's taking the opportunity for the slowdown in business to continue to hone your skills and get better. And so Curt and I have had this ongoing conversation, and he's been wanting to know more and more about connection and how it could fit, and I was flattered when he called. Curt's got this really cool project inside of his company, and what he does to reach all of his people in the sales role that are out there, he's created an internal podcast, kind of like this one, that he simply calls DXP Sales Radio. And from time to time, he reaches out to experts that can share some outside knowledge and bring that inside of his company, and I was floored when he asked me to be a part of that. Truly honored for the opportunity. What you're going to hear today, I'm going to flip the script. Instead of me interviewing Curt, which is going to come up later because he's got some really cool stuff that he's doing in the company that I want you to know about. But what he talks about here, he's going to interview me. Yeah, right? You get to hear me yip and yap and all kinds of stuff. But this is a really cool idea of how somebody in a corporation is still taking that entrepreneurial mindset and saying, let's do something that's above and beyond. Yep, he could schedule a teleconference and hope everybody's on it, and some of them will be, but he's dealing with salespeople, consultants, people who are out in the field, out meeting with customers and clients. We don't want to stop what everybody's doing and slow the momentum down just to take a call when we might be able to do it offline or when they're traveling or doing something else. So he's created this program called DXP Sales Radio. I was flattered to be a part of it. I've already told you I'm flattered. I'm excited. Let's just get on to it. Stick around. Here we go. Listen to the flip script. No, listen to the script get flipped. Yeah, I'll get it out there, right? I want to let you listen to my buddy Curt Tueffert interviewing me, and I got something special for you on the other side. So buckle your seatbelts, folks. This one is going to be great.
Hello and welcome to another edition of DXP Sales Radio. This is your host, Curt Tueffert, Vice President of Sales Development here at DXP. Today on our DXP Sales Radio interview, we have a local favorite, Houston, Texas, Scott Cooksey. Scott, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you. I'm looking forward to having this interview with all of the wisdom and the knowledge that you can share with the people on this call.
Curt, thank you very much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and all these fine folks that will be listening in today as we kind of really dive into something that is really near and dear to me. So just to kind of give you a little background of where I come from, my career started with about a little over a decade in the financial services industry, but I made a pivot around 2008, 2009. The market went through another gyration for about the third time in my career. And I took a step back and I said, what do I really love to do? And I said, what really gets me out of bed, gets me fired up in the morning is leaving people better than I found them. And I started to explore that and see what that would look like, and found myself building a business that allowed me to go inside. In the last 6 or 7 years, I think I've looked inside the eyes of people that represent well over 1,000 companies literally around the globe. Have had the chance to deliver over 400 leadership workshops directly inside a number of companies, and have done some public work as well, and really just become a student of leadership and figuring out what it is that makes great leaders different, and have really been able to boil it down to one single thing, and that's the ability to connect. I found that people that have the ability to connect well with others, whether it's your people that work for you, your clients, your business partners, management of your organization, heck, even your relationships at home and the people you're in the neighborhood with. The people that can connect well with other people tend to be those that find success in a number of different ways within their own life. That gets me excited. When my feet hit the floor in the morning, I can't wait to get out there and just share that with the world.
Wow, Scott, thank you very much for that introduction. And for those of us who are on the phone listening to this, those of us who are driving in our cars or using our smart devices to listen to this one, Scott just unpacked a tremendous amount in this very quick introduction, from 12 years in the financial services, which is a tough street fighting kind of career for him. And now, just stepping back in my notes here, correct me if I'm wrong, but addressing over 1,000 corporations and offering over 400 different leadership workshops in your career as a professional leadership person.
Yeah, it's really been a phenomenal journey. When I say I've looked inside 1,000 companies, a good bit of that, a lot of my work tends to be, Curt, where I might go in, at least where it is today. I may have a multi-engagement relationship with a client where I might go in over the course of several months, and we give leaders the chance to learn some critical skills that are all seemingly centered around the idea of connection, whether that's building great teams, establishing a foundation of trust, learning how to coach your employees and be more effective in that, and being more effective with how you're using your time and how you talk to people, heck, how you even run a more efficient, effective phone call that allows you to go deep, go quick, and solve people's problems. And being able to do that again and again and again. The neat part about this, Curt, is that I've looked inside all these different companies, and it ranges. I mean, I've talked to oil and gas service companies. I've been inside the exploration and production companies. For a short period, one of my clients in the Houston area is a small manufacturer of a pipeline repair solution for the oil and gas industry. They brought me in-house, and I worked right there as part of their sales team for 2 years, and did some work with the reposition of marketing of that company somewhat during that time. And then, clients I'm working with today include those in the healthcare space, and I've been doing a lot of work over the past year in the aerospace manufacturing and aerospace electronics areas as well. And I've learned across all of those entities that I've worked with, whether they're large companies or small, public or private, for-profit, not-for-profit, the amazing thing is that every single company has the same challenge. And that's really establishing the connection that allows the people inside those organizations to do the best, and for the organizations themselves to be able to build lasting, profitable client relationships. And it's just truly amazing, because leadership is leadership. And what I've learned is that everything else is just the context of the business that you might be in.
Well, let me kind of just use what you've just said as as the basis of our conversation, Scott. You're talking about the number one issue in leadership is the ability to connect. In your experience, what is the root cause of our inability to connect, or another way, of our disconnect?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that, Curt, because in my opinion and in my experience in talking to a lot of people, I find that sometimes we forget that when we're building relationships, it's as much about the other person as it is about us. So let's put my sales hat on for a minute. Sometimes, when I was in the financial services business, my product was numbers on a piece of paper. It wasn't even something tangible you could put in your hand. And the conversation and my success in that role was only as good as the connection I had with that customer, because as we're seeing right now in the oil and gas industry, there's times the markets go down. There's times the markets go up. And, there's an old saying that says that a rising tide lifts all boats. Well, it's 2016 and the tide is out. Okay?
Exactly.
So this is the time that it's really the opportunity to start building the skills we're talking about building these connections. And that means listening more to our people, having real empathy. Empathy is somebody's ability for you to recognize and acknowledge the emotion that somebody is expressing in an exchange with you. You may sit down and talk with a client and they say, I need this. Well, that's what they think they need. But if you pay attention to the emotion of their statement, you'll find out there's frustration. You may find out, you've got to dig a little deeper, and that's that emotional intelligence part kicks in a little bit. You've got to say, tell me more about that. It sounds like this is really important to you. And they go, yeah, it's really important to me. We're trying to keep the lights on here. Our sales are off. The revenues are down. We're high in cost containment, and we've already picked off the low-hanging fruit. We need some real help. And that, when you have a client that'll be that honest with you about where they really are, that allows somebody that's in a client management role to be able to put on a hat almost like a consultant and say, well, let's dig a little deeper. Let me roll up my sleeves and get right here with you. And when you do that, they realize that you're taking an interest, not just taking an order.
Taking an interest and not an order. And this whole idea in sales, as you know, about building trust and rapport and our ability to connect and allowing the other person to be more important than we are. All of these things are part of the arrows in your quiver, if you will, about connection and the ability to do that. How would you coach, and I know this is a short call and this takes a lot more time, but how would you coach someone who, let's just face it, they're not very good at their leadership and connection? What are some of the things you could help them with to be better at connecting?
I would say the place to start, and many times when I find that there's a big disconnect, it's because, let's face it, many people find themselves in a leadership role, Curt, because they've had the most tenure on the job. Sometimes it's because, and I've seen organizations where people get promoted because of attrition. Everybody else left. And they say, well, who's been here? It's that guy or that gal. And so we move them into that leadership role. Or heaven forbid, we see a company that takes their number one salesperson and they say, we want to move you into sales management, which is a very different skill set. It's related, but it's very different. When you go from managing client expectations to managing those that manage client expectations, that adds a whole nother layer of complication. But I will tell you that, well, there you go. I used the word tell. I would say a lot of times people that have trouble with the disconnect is that they tend to tell too much. And I think the first step is to say, I'm going to step back, I'm going to ask more questions, and I'm going to listen.
Okay. Ask more questions and listen.
Yeah. And let's see what's there. If you want to build a connection with somebody, then you have to give them a chance to get involved in the conversation. How many times have you seen a rookie salesperson go out on a call, get in front of the customer, and the last thing they heard before they went in there is, don't come back without an order. Right?
Yeah.
So and you got this guy or this gal, and they're feeling the pressure. They want to do a good job for the company. They're excited about the new job, but they're the new one. And they step into a situation. Maybe it's in an area that they have an expertise in connecting with people, They've had success in another industry, but the industry that they're walking into to call this customer is one they don't have as much familiarity with.
Yep.
They may not have the true context of what the customer's asking for. And it's having the confidence and the courage to step back and go, Mr. and Ms. Customer, I hear what you're asking me, but I do have a question for you. Let's dig a little deeper. Let's see what's going on, because it might happen. I'll give you an example from the financial services world, and I'll keep this one simple. But there's basically two kinds of retirement plans that you might have that are sponsored by a company. One where the employee puts most of their money into, and the company might do a match. That'd be like your 401k. The other is the traditional pension plan that's fully funded just by the company, both of which are designed to create retirement revenue for the employees. I had a customer that came in one time, and he said, I want to get rid of my pension plan because I'm tired of funding it because the market was going through a gyration at that time, and that meant they had to put more money in it. And he said, it's costing me too much money. And I said, tell me more about your, I said, what do you want to do instead? He said, I want to put in a 401k plan that is employee funded. And I said, great, let's talk more about why you want to do that and tell me more about the people that work for you. Mm-hmm. And as he began to tell me the story of who worked for him, I found out, he said, my employees live from check to check. They're hand to mouth. They're not highly paid folks. And every dime that they earn, they spend before the next check comes out. And I stopped and I looked at him and I said, how do you feel about these people? He said, they're like family. I want to make sure we take care of them. And I said, then don't give them a 401k plan. They're worried about putting groceries on the table on Friday when they get paid. They're not thinking about their retirement 20 or 30 years down the road. If you really want to show them that you take care of them as a company, I think there's another route we could take. But what if we could keep you with the type of retirement plan you have that's funded by your company, but find you a better money manager that could invest the cash that's in it smarter to give you a better return so you don't have to put as much money in from year to year. We met both problems. He was able to feel good about continuing to provide a real benefit for his customer or for his employees, but he was able to do it and save themselves a whole lot of money without putting the burden, an undue burden, an unexpected burden that he hadn't considered back on the employee that would have left them in a worse off position.
I love it. I love the way that you're connecting the dots here. And, of course, you know, we're going to lead up to talking about your book called Connect. You talked about one of the disconnects is that people will tell too much. And you know, we get that, you know, which is a lot of controlling, and we're going to tell you what to do rather than ask more questions. What's one other thing that someone can do to get better at their connecting?
Know your process.
Okay.
But don't let your customer know that you have a process. I learned that this weekend. I was at a conference myself. I'm a student as much as I am a teacher. And I sat in a room listening to a gentleman explain about how he sells his consulting services. And he said, you have to understand what you do. And he said, I'm going to lead my client. And the whole premise of his conversation was from the point of, I've already got the lead. I'm in the door. I'm sitting in front of the client. But now I'm trying to get them to the point that they'll sign the contract and become a customer. And he laid out that what worked for him was a 5-step plan, each one designed to further solidify the client's ability to see him demonstrate his expertise. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he sort of humbled himself, and he goes, look, you may already know the answer. I don't know that I can help you. But, you know, it's almost like Columbo, right? You remember the old TV show Columbo?
Sure.
Columbo was famous at the very end of a conversation or an investigation. He would stop and act like he was walking away as this bumbling old fool, and he would turn around and go, you know, I just have one more question. And it would be like the keystone thing that would tie everything he'd been asking together, and that's how he would solve the mystery. But nobody could see him building the pieces and going that way. Look, your client, they don't care what your process is. They don't. They have a problem, they have a pain, and they want you to demonstrate for them that you can make that pain go away and make their life better. That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about your process, so they don't need to be a victim to it. But those with a connection can remember that, all right, I have a framework, I know where I'm going, but let me in a very confident, calm, thoughtful way dig a little deeper, let the client drive it. You know where you're going. Mm-hmm. Right? You know that I'm here and what I want is the sale, right? Or I'm here and what I need is, you know, a deeper commitment from the client to work with me. And by knowing that, then having some sort of guide points that you work from one step to the next, without going, okay, so here's step 1, and here's step 2, and here's step 3. I realized the light just came on for me, Curt, and I realized that the clients that I've had the easiest time selling to are those that saw me as somebody that carried expertise in something that mattered to them first. And then it was real easy. I wasn't selling to them. They were choosing to buy from me. And I think that's huge. I just think that's terribly important.
I appreciate that, because you walked right on into the we have a 6-step sales process here, Scott, at DXP, and it's called Impact, and it's kind of investigate, meet, probe, apply, convince, and tie it up. And again, we have to move our customers through the process without telling them we're moving them through the process. But in this tough time, I just sent a podcast out on the DXP Sales Radio about we need to be duplicatable and replicatable in what we do. We have to have a repeatable, predictable process to get through the tough times. We can be spectacular, and that's great, but sometimes that spectacular is the one and done, and while that gets us that deal in the door or it earns a right to do business with that customer, in this tough time, we have got to be able to be repeatable and predictable, and a sales process will get us there. You touched on 2 things that I just love, the fact that to be better at our leadership, which is the number one thing about leadership, is our ability to connect. For those of us who are weak at connecting, instead of telling too much, let's ask more questions and listen and know our process. And, there's so much we can talk about being a student of leadership and a student of connection that will help someone, whether it's a book like Dale Carnegie's book or a book that I've read recently, Crucial Conversations, or even the book that you've given me a copy of, which is this book called Connect. Tell me a little bit about what caused you to write a book, to become an author, and what has been some of the stories from when you've given and sold your book and gotten the feedback. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. The project was kind of interesting. I almost wrote the book by accident. and it's absolutely true. And here's what happened. I shared with you there was a period of time that one of my Houston-based clients had brought me in to work for them full time. And I still had this real desire. I was like, wow, now I'm in the laboratory every day, right? All these leadership techniques that I've been teaching, now I'm in a place where I had the opportunity to really see what my clients were experiencing when they went back and tried to put those ideas into action, right? And within a real company. And what happened was I found that it's kind of funny, but I had this Twitter account, okay, this true story, Twitter account, that as these things would happen, I would somehow distill that down to a tweet, right? So text messages, less than 140 characters. I would summarize the poignant lesson of something that had happened, and I would send it out, and I would put a hashtag on it called, hey, that's a Connect tip. And I said, well, that's interesting. Well, I got to the end of the year, one year, and I said, I wonder how many of those I've done. And I went back and pulled my entire Twitter feed for the year, sorted them out, and realized I found, somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 or 70 of those poignant ideas. And I thought, there's a story behind every one of these, but what if I would compile them down to a book and just let it be some quick hit, digestible nuggets that are just good wisdom for somebody who wants to build better connections. Here's an example of one. Page 36 says, everyone is in sales. Do your customers understand when you can help? Now, that sounds pretty simple when you read it this way, but who comes to the top of the mind when you need certain things? Are you thought of as the person that, I'm going to call you and tell you what I want, and you're just going to put in the order? Or are you going to come to me and say, I want to change the style of, I need to do something different. I've got this real issue, and they want to rely on your technical expertise. Are you the one that's top of mind when they do that?
Right.
And that's critically important. You can educate your customer to the end of the earth, but if you're not top of mind when they need you, they may not call.
That's a great insight, and I love the way the books come together. And I know I've read it. It's just an easy. It's a gentle reminder of the things we should already know. And again, you're traveling, you're going all over the place, talking to companies about leadership workshops. It's boiled down to the number one thing is the ability to connect. You mentioned that the book came from your use of social media, and whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or any of these things. How is technology helping or hindering our ability to connect?
Thank you for asking that question, because, it's really easy for a lot of people, and I see this happen all the time. It drives me bananas. So let's talk about social media, and I'll start with Twitter, right? That's where I shared the ideas with the book, and there are a lot of people out there that love to put quotes out there, but none of them are an original thought. None of them are anything that differentiates them from anybody else. There are lots of people that set up a Twitter account that go, yeah, I have those, and people follow me. Because people like my quotes, but none of it's an original thought. Every one of these Connect tips was an original thought written by me. Mm-hmm. And while I appreciate a good Zig Ziglar quote from time to time, and I don't mind hearing from some other smart people that are out there. There's people certainly that I admire whose books I read, and who doesn't like a good Napoleon Hill quote once in a while. But if that's all you ever send out, what's the real value? And I found that I was paying attention to people that had original thought. And more importantly, when on social media especially, I tend to pay attention to people that are givers. I have a colleague who is pretty well known within circles, certainly amongst other speakers and people that do leadership development, such like I do. But he's known as being a great marketing guy. And I will tell you, I've done business with him. Okay, in full disclosure, I have purchased some of his programs. He's got an 8-week and a 10-week camps he does from time to time, and we do some series. I've done the series with him before, and what I found was he wasn't giving me anything in that 8 or 10-week program that I didn't already learn from him somewhere for free. And that was really an aha for me. And what he did was, his position is this. He goes, tell everybody what you know. Be the expert. If people copy you, great. That's flattery. He said, but keep giving. And here's why I say that. There's a lot of people that will use social media to say, I know how to solve your $1 million problem. I know how to make you great. I know how to do this and that and the other. Everything they put out there is a sales pitch with an ulterior motive. And I follow that closely enough now to realize that's a huge disconnect for me, and I will stop paying attention to those channels. But the people that I stay connected to are people that put some of their own personality into it. Right. Every time they put a message out on a social media platform, it's not call me and buy something. It's actually a useful tip. It's, hey, here's some related industry article that might be interesting for the people that like doing business with you, might be interested in.
Sure.
Become a resource for your customer base and your fans. Don't just be a huckster and always trying to sell somebody. I had a friend a few years ago that was involved in a multi-level marketing. Everybody's had a buddy or a cousin or somebody that's been in a multi-level marketing deal, and some of them are great. They're fantastic. But what drives me nuts is the person that every time they call you, the only reason they call you is to try to get you in the program.
Right.
And I was like, dude, sometimes I just want to go have a beer or a cup of coffee with you. That's it. That's all I want to do. I just want to be your friend and hang out. I know what you do. And to be honest, I have a friend that there was a time I might have gotten involved with his business, but I decided not to do it because I didn't want to be associated with him in that business. And so anyway, there's ways to use social media. I think we have to be really careful. I think if you're going to put information out there, make sure it's useful, make sure it's relevant, and don't be afraid to let your own personality show through. It doesn't always have to be sterile. Now, use some discretion about how much you want to share on your social media platforms. I mean, I wouldn't put anything intensely personal out there, but just be you. And I find that people tend to gravitate toward that, and that in and of itself becomes a connection.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Let me kind of wind down our interview time. We've got the people who are listening in on this one. We've got Scott, and Scott's talking about leadership. He's talking about the ability to connect. He's talking about the things we can do that will allow us to really resonate with customers and clients and prospects, to make us much more stickable, if you want to call that as a word, for trust and rapport. Scott, if you had to just step back and say, you know what, let's just mix the pot up one more time, and if I had to do it over again, if I had to just do this whole leadership thing over again, what would you do differently, and how would that impact leadership as we go from 2016 to the future?
You know, I've from time to time I do step back and I take a look and I ask myself, what are the lessons that I've learned? You know, I've got the advantage of being able to look back over a number of years, we'll put it that way, more than I care to count, but a number of years that have given me a variety of experiences across some different perspectives of business. And if I could do one thing differently, I think earlier in my career, I would have dug deeper to learn more about what I was trying to do and the customers I was trying to serve. And I would have more deliberately and intentionally positioned myself as a true resource, rather than somebody that was just trying to get enough information to loosely tie that to a product or a service that I was trying to sell, and then try to immediately close the deal. So if I could do one thing again, here's what I would do. I would position myself as being a resource more. I think I would give away things that I know are of interest to my potential clients. So, for example, I might, bring some folks in and I would share articles more frequently. Hey, thought this might be of interest to you, and just gain some favor with those folks. I would speak more. If there was an opportunity to to showcase, what I knew that might be of interest to a group of people, and I had a chance to present, I think I would do that more often. I think I shied away from that. I tend to let other people seem like, hey, they should step up. Now, I'm somebody today that speaks for a living, right? So it's only natural that I would say that, but I really wish I'd done it earlier, because I found that the more I got out and talked to people, the more I've gone out and asked the tough questions, and the old Covey, seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Yep.
And I think that's really, really critical. I think, being vulnerable enough to put your guard down and go, help me understand how that works in your business. I've found myself effectively working as a technical sales rep, in the oil and gas business, for a small manufacturing company. I have a finance degree. I didn't go to school for that. I understand the financial impact of why you want that particular product would have been a good solution. But, I didn't know anything about engineering. I had to learn it. But most of the things that I learned by just being willing to go out and say, well, help me understand. Let me ask some questions. And really, by walking in going, here, just walk me through that. Let's keep it simple. And having an honest discussion, I found that people will share with you more than you could ever ask them. And I think if you listen to the message or the intent behind what people actually say, kind of use those active listening skills, you combine that with positioning yourself as a resource, it will shorten the curve and solidify your position with those customers. And when it comes time for them to buy, you will be at the top of that list. You'll be the one they think of first, because you helped them when times were tough.
Absolutely. And let me kind of boil that down as I was taking notes, Scott, to what you just said. The one thing, is you dig deeper to learn more, to position yourself. One of the taglines at DXP is we are customer-driven experts at MROP Solutions. One of the things I talk about inside DXP and outside DXP is our ability to become an expert. And I love what you said about digging deeper and to be that. And I saw this quote that I wrote down many years ago. Apparently, it was in 2010, because that's when I got the notebook with the year on it. And it resonates right now. It says, before you can be great, you've got to be good. Before you are good, you got to be bad. And before you are bad, you've got to start something. And in order for us to be an expert, we have to be an amateur. Before we can be an amateur, we got to start something. And I love it that you started a revolution when it came to leadership, and you made the discovery that it's the ability to connect. And now your mission is to wake up every morning as your feet hit the floor and say, my job is to connect, and I want to leave people better than when I found them. And that's how you started the interview. But I want to leave people better than how I found them. I want to be able to teach connection. I want to be able to have leadership principles that allow us to ask more questions and to listen more and to talk less. And again, it sounds so simple, but it's got to take a lifetime of deep learning in order to basically become an expert at that. And man, I've learned a lot from this call, because I know in my sales career, I want a one and done, get it done. I want to spike the football and get done in the meeting in 47.5 minutes. And, it doesn't work all the time. I become that suede shoe, pinky ring, plaid jacket. Hey, I start turning into a used car sales guy. Yeah. And they don't need that. The customers and the prospects, they don't need that. We who are in leadership, if you're on this call and you're listening as a sales director, sales manager, or sales vice president, you've got to be able to listen to our employees. The DX People culture is all about a family, and we can't listen if we're telling, and we've got to be able to connect more. Scott, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and from the ability to read your book, Connect, and to spend some time with you. Thank you very much for sharing your leadership principles with us, and I look forward to catching up with you in Houston the next time you and I can break bread together.
I look forward to it, my friend. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I sincerely look forward to 2016 being a prosperous year for us all.
Absolutely. And for those of us listening on the call, this concludes this edition of DXP Sales Radio. And again, I'm your host, Curt Tueffert, Vice President of Sales Development here at DXP, wishing you a successful sales day as well as a sales career here at DXP.
A special thanks again to all my friends over at DXP. They refer to themselves as DX People, which I think is really cool. And I hope that you're doing something innovative for your teams as well. Listen, I made you a promise on the other side, and it is this. If you're thinking about in your company how you could showcase your expertise and showcase what you are all about and how you look at things a little different, I want to hear from you, because I think you'd be a fantastic guest for the show. So please, if you would, send me an email and let me know a little bit more about who you are, what you do. There's some really cool folks out there that have been listening to the show. I know, because I'm hearing from you, and I know that you're doing some good things, and a few of you have already been on. And I want to put that offer out there for even more folks. So if you're interested in being on the show, please send me an email at podcast@ideacharger.com. And we hope that you'll stop by the website at successchargerpodcast.com. Listen, if you liked this idea, do me a favor, share it with your boss. Share it with your sales manager this week. And say, hey, listen, here's somebody that I listen to. I think he's got something to say. And I wonder if he might be able to help craft a message for us. I would be more than happy to do that. And you know what? I would do one of those for your team for free. That's right. On a limited number. I mean, if I got like 100 requests, that would be kind of tricky. You know what? If I got 100 requests, I would take them. That's what I would do. So listen, let me know. Again, podcast@ideacharger.com, or just stop by and see us at ideacharger.com. And if you'd like for me to come in and work with your teams, I'd love to work with you. We'll see you next week, folks. If you enjoyed what you just heard, please post your 5-star review and subscribe to Success Charger today. Your future is waiting.